Yeah, it all started, when my dad brought home a computer. I was a latchkey kid, so my parents would go to along, and I wanted to figure out how to get onto the computer, but I didn't actually know how to read. And so I knew where the power button was, and I knew that if you put in a certain diskette, you could play games. There's a chapter in my book called Betrayal. I had a startup idea in Oklahoma that I was building as I was moving to California. I was starting with this company in Berkeley. That startup went crazy. So I explained the whole thing on what I was working on, how I lost the argument and my stance and everything. He looked me right in the eyes and he said, "Thank you for saving Reddit," because this would have been a shit show.
No way.
It would have been some banner and video ads all over Reddit that were not properly integrated, but just done for short-term revenue.
All right, we got Ryan Merket, who's launching an amazing memoir, A Hacker's Edge. Phenomenal story. I was just reading all of your stuff on Guest Pod. Man, where do we begin? Let's go back to the early ages, if you will. Let's talk about some of the trials and tribulations, please.
Yeah, hey, well, first of all, Sonic, thanks for having me. This is an honor. And this is the first time I've talked about the book publicly, so I'm a little nervous. But it all started back, when my dad brought home a computer. I was a latchkey kid, so my parents would go to work all day long, and I wanted to figure out how to get onto the computer, but I didn't actually know how to read. And so I knew where the power button was, and I knew that if you put in a certain diskette, you could play games. And so I just kept figuring out that, there's a certain copyright protection in the game that says you have to find the certain word at a certain page on a certain paragraph, put that in as the unlock for the game. And that was the way they kept people from passing around diskettes, because it was really hard to Xerox manuals back in the day.
That's
in
right.
the late 80s, early 90s. And so that
You're
was the
bringing back
copyright
memories. Weren't those floppies, like the bigger ones? And then there had the smaller ones where you would hit some kind of a plastic thing that would keep it to do something? I can't remember.
Yeah. There was 5-inch and 3.5-inch, I think. I was a kid. It was a long time ago.
Heck
But
yeah.
that's where it all started, really. It was just, hacking, being by myself and hacking, computers and figuring out how to make things work unconventionally, right? So.
Yeah, I remember the same thing. You would have these little diskettes, and then games became popular, and then the whole rage was building your own system. Did you get into that, like the motherboards and the graphics and the memories and all that?
Definitely. I got really into hacking and cracking. So, when I would put a software on my computer, it would ask me you have 30 days to use this, or you need to put in a name and a serial number to unlock it. And back then, that's how software was protected. Nowadays, it makes a phone home to some server and make sure you're actually real, which is still crackable. But
Sure.
back then, I was just like, there's got to be a way to get inside this executable file and figure out how to manipulate it so that it thinks it's registered. And so I went off and web crawlered before it was Google, how to do all this, and ended up in IRC chat rooms where I would talk to people from all over the world. I was 12, 13 years old, and I'm talking to, a 38-year-old guy in the UK who probably is intelligence for all I know, who knows, but he's teaching me how to actually open up the exe file, what to look for, which code I should be going after, and the different things like that in order to get to the function that holds the copyright protection.
Oh, nice.
And
So
it was just
you
so
went
thrilling as a
Yeah, you went
kid,
early and deep. Nice. I remember IRC, which is Internet Relay Chat, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
Common
right, yep.
protocol. Lots of platforms use that now. But we were logging into the different channels to find movies, right? And you'd download little torrents of them all over the world, basically, and be like, hey, does anybody have Lord of the Rings? And then somebody will just share their virus, and you'd just be downloading their virus thinking you're getting Lord of the Rings, and then your computer's hosed.
Yeah, and that's essentially how we recruited people, right? So if we needed a specific piece of software to crack, we would then dangle this carrot of, hey, you can get any movie, any media file that's ever been created on this FTP site that we have access to, and we only have 7 accounts on this. It's a very prestigious FTP site, and if you come to our group and you help us get this software, we'll give you access to these FTP servers where you can get anything you want at high speeds, don't have to wait in line or anything. And that's That's essentially like why people worked with us back when we were like teenagers doing all this stuff. It was essentially because we had access to all these massive servers with anything you could ever want. And
I
so it was
see.
always free.
Okay.
Like we didn't actually pay anyone to do anything. It was
Hmm.
always like a transfer of goods or
Yep.
services.
You're exchanging some kind of value for it. So let me make sure I get this straight. So you have a file transfer protocol server, FTP server, with like a ton of movies, all sorts of cool games, and then in exchange for that, you're asking professionals, pseudo professionals maybe, to come in and help you solve problems, which is essentially cracking software.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's really
Or
cool.
one of the other roles that are available in those online underground groups, right? That I was
Yeah, let's not
joining.
get into the illegal stuff necessarily, but yeah, sure, you're cracking
You know,
software.
what other
Okay.
there was suppliers, crackers, couriers, there was leadership, there was packers.
What would be an example of a courier in this case? Like transferring money physically?
Yeah. Nope. Courier is transferring our crack software into the public ecosphere by basically putting it onto an FTP server that we had a relationship with that would then push our software out to the underground servers and eventually end up on torrents.
I
So
gotcha.
this is
Okay,
like
so
one step
this
above torrents is where it all starts.
okay, and then so let's say you have some cracked software, you're pushing it out through a courier, maybe they're putting in some Git repository somewhere or some forum, a Reddit forum. Now, what is your goal? What is the objective?
So the couriers are actually pushing it to other FTP sites. They have their own groups, their own branding, their own leaderboards. So the best couriers in the world stay up 24 hours a day. Now it's all probably automated, but back then it was all manual. People running server scripts to basically look for new releases on an FTP site. If a new release hits, then they would grab it and be the first to transfer it to the top sites. And then there would be a list of top sites and a newsletter that goes out every month that shows who are the top couriers on the top sites. And it was all just for like props, right? And
That's what
so
I was getting at. Like, what is the goal? It's just for props at the end of the day.
that's all for props. And like there would be these massive courier groups that were known for being fast and delivering new crack software, movies, or whatever the release is to the other FTP sites. So that way it would spread across the world like almost instantaneously. And so in exchange for us putting the crack software on that FTP site first, or the movie or whatever we're putting out, they would give us 10 slots or 10 accounts that we can then give to our crackers or our media suppliers. Does that make
Which
sense?
and the
So
10,
they can
10
then get
accounts to
down their
their FTP
download.
server.
Those are those FTP sites I was talking about in the very beginning of the episode.
Gotcha. Which means you now have access to additional movies and games and all sorts of cool software.
Yeah, when you log
Okay.
in, it's like folders of just different types of media types. It's like movies, music, software, you name it. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And then in exchange for our group putting our stuff on, we would have like a certain set of HQs, headquarter FTP sites that we would pre-release our software or our release to that FTP site. So then that FTP site would then get our release before everybody else. And in exchange for us doing that for them, they would give us a certain number of counts on those FTP sites. So
Nice. Okay.
yeah,
And you're doing this as a kid. How old are you at this point?
I'm like middle school, high school.
Nice.
Yeah, it was wild. It's a crazy time of my life. I ended up dropping out of high school because I thought this was way more fun than
Okay.
going to geography class or anything like
Yeah.
that, even though I still love Google Maps.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up, getting a GED and eventually ended up at a HBCU in San Antonio, Texas,
What
called
is
St. Philip's College. It's a historically Black college.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't actually know. Some of my friends were going there and I was like, all right, let's go. And then I realized I was like, wait a minute, I'm the only white guy here. But yeah, I ended up transferring to Oklahoma Wesleyan University after a crazy moment of serendipity and prodigal son moment coming home back to my parents after living in a hacker house for a few years. And
They have those.
ended up going to a Christian university and meeting my wife there. And we've been married 18 years as of yesterday. And
Wow.
yeah, we have 2
Congratulations.
little ones and a dog. And in between there, we did 10 years in the Bay Area working at companies like Amazon and Reddit and Facebook. And so,
So
yeah, it's been
when
quite
did
the story.
like did they go in that order, like Amazon, Facebook, Reddit?
No, I was Facebook 2009 to
Okay.
2010. I was only there for a year. And I left to do my first startup on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt in New York. And then
So let me
we
go
got
back to just kind of keep it on a timeline. So if you were at college, then After college, I assume, is when Facebook picked you up?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I was in college, and then the book kind of picks up on this story, but I was working for a design agency in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and just building simple websites. And then all of a sudden, Facebook announced their platform where you could build games and apps. And I was like, oh, wow, this seems like something. So I went home that night and I built a TechCrunch app for the blog TechCrunch, the big tech blog. And I sent it to their tips at TechCrunch. And that night, Michael Arrington, the founder of TechCrunch, hit me up on email and he was like, hey, let's jump on Skype. I want to talk about this. And so it was like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. I still remember I'm talking to Michael Arrington and he's like, this is great. We're going to do a post about this. Who should I attribute it to? And I said, give it, just say PDG Creative did it, the design agency I was working for, because I didn't really know if I was
Oh,
supposed to
that's
be doing
nice of
anything on
you.
the side. And so anyway, we did the post and our agency blew up overnight from, Oklahoma little websites
Of
to,
course.
building apps for New York Times and Guy Kawasaki and,
No kidding.
MSNBC like overnight. And so that's what really spurred me to go ahead and put my hat in the arena to move to Silicon Valley. And so I gave PDG Creative the option. I said, hey, you guys can move with me. I'll start an office in San Francisco and, we could all do it together. And they said, no, we'd rather just stay here in Oklahoma. And so
Right.
I ended up taking cold emailed my way into Silicon Valley. And I actually share that email in the book as well. And, and then how I got the job was basically, they weren't sure, it was a San Francisco company and they were like, look, this kid's in Oklahoma. So they
Mhm.
sent me a Photoshop file and they said, we want to see what you can do. Can you convert this into HTML and CSS? This is before AI and all that.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, I printed out the design file and put it next to me and just hand coded the HTML and the CSS looking at the file and sent it back about an hour later. They weren't expecting it until like the next day.
Right.
And they were like, this is really impressive. When can you be out here? And
Whoa.
so
Okay. So that was like your interview essentially, because that's what they do, right? These Silicon Valley companies, they don't want to just
mhm,
interview you. They want to give you a project and see if you can kind of solve it on your own. It gives them an insight on how you think, how you solve problems.
totally.
And then there's like an
Yep.
extended interview process as well, right? Where they're like, hey, come on over and stay with us for a month kind of thing.
Yeah, it was kind of wild because I was actually interviewing at two different companies at the same time. One of them flew me out. And so I went out and did the interview. It was actually a smaller design agency called Zerb. They're still around, one of the top UI, UX agencies in the world. And they flew me out for all day session interview. And at the end, they gave me an offer. And so I went back to the hotel that night. And this was in Campbell, California, which is a suburb of San Jose. And so I went back to the hotel. I was just trying to relax. It was like 9 o'clock. I just had done getting beers with the team and was kind of tired. But then the other startup in Berkeley called me up and they were like, hey, we saw on Twitter that you're in the Bay Area. Would you be interested in coming by tomorrow for an interview? And I said, well,
Wow.
actually, my flight's at like 7 a.m. and I'm with another company, so I can't really make that work. And they were like, oh, well, which hotel are you staying at? And I told
We're
them,
in the
and they're like,
lobby,
would you be
actually.
open to having a beer tonight? And I was like, look, if you show up in the lobby, I won't say no. And so sure enough, it was like the whole leadership team's 5 people showed up in the lobby, CEO, CTO, and everyone else, founders. And yeah, we ended up, they loved me and they asked me, do I have an offer? I said, yes. I told them how much it was. And I said, it's like
What was the
45K.
offer? Can you share it? It was like
It
years
was like
ago.
45K for an entry level front end engineer position at a design agency in San
Yep.
Jose. And I was like, you
Sounds
know
right.
what? That's a ticket over. But then this other company was like, we'll double it. We'll give you 90K.
Exactly.
And
Exactly
we'll,
right.
we'll give you a moving truck. And we'll set you up in Berkeley. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds better.
That sounds a little better. Yeah. If you can double it, awesome. I'll
Yeah.
make an
So I was like,
exception.
honey, we're moving to the Bay Area. So we got married October 6th. And we ended up moving in December, like 2 months later, to the Bay Area. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess. After that, let's see, that startup got acquired by CBS Interactive, which is the big public company, it's the interactive arm of CBS.
Okay.
And let's see, after that, I went to Facebook. So when I was at CBS Interactive, I was like known as the Facebook guy. I was building all kinds of skunkworks Facebook projects and apps that we were monetizing and a whole nother story. I'll get to
Sure.
on different podcasts maybe. But anyway, so Facebook was like, hey, can you come to the F8 conference, the first F8 conference? And so I asked my manager, is like, is it cool if I go to the F8 conference? And he kind of knew they were probably going to try to recruit me.
Definitely.
And so he said, no, I'd rather you prefer you not go to that conference.
Terrible manager, by the way. Terrible manager. Always let your people evolve and grow. You're not going to hold them back. You're only going to piss off Ryan, and then he's going to leave.
Yeah. And so I actually took a personal day and went anyway. And I was cornered there by Josh Ellman, who's a legendary investor in Silicon Valley now, one of the first product managers at Twitter as well. And was at Facebook at the time. And Dave Morin, who's a VC at, I think it's Outside VC, but really well known in the industry now as well. But they were at Facebook and kind of the face of the Facebook platform at the time, which is the Facebook apps and games and stuff, right?
Okay.
And so anyway, they cornered me and they're like, we wanted you to work at Facebook. And I'm like, okay, let's make this happen. And then that was 2008. And then I got
Well, double
the
your offer again. So you went from 90 to 180 this time, right?
No, Facebook got went down. So at Facebook, they really went heavy on equity, which is not a bad thing, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because, hey, Facebook's going to blow up.
So, yeah, I mean, like my offer from the other company was a lot. I think because they won.
Sorry,
right?
let me just kind of explain a little bit. Because for those that are listening, there's a salary that they're going to pay. Let's say it's $90,000. But then they're also going to offer stocks to say, hey, if you work for us for 12 months, we're going to give you 200 stocks of Facebook. Those stocks are yours to keep or sell after they vest, right? So you stay for a certain amount of years and then you can exchange them for money. Or if you still keep them, you're worth like multi-millions of dollars right now.
Correct. Yeah. So I
Correct
was
on both accounts.
lucky enough to get some RSUs in 2009 at Facebook. They IPO'd in 2012. So it was a few years before the IPO. And then let's see. So yeah, I was there. One of my first projects was helping the White House do the first ever live stream on Facebook in 2009 for President Obama's inaugural.
Wow.
It was just like, here, you're jumping right in, right? So, and then after that, I was helping a little startup in Sweden called Spotify.
Whoa.
Set up all of their Facebook integrations. Their new president was just announced 2 days ago. Gustav, who was my contact there when I was working at Facebook. And so, yeah, I went from there to working with Disney, ESPN, setting up Facebook across all of their properties. When I say setting up Facebook, it's like the login button, the integrations, showing what your friends, like which teams your friends are into and things like that.
Okay.
So it's a really, really cool experience. I got to meet Mark Zuckerberg once or twice. That was awesome.
Nice.
And then, yeah.
How do you actually meet Mark in those big companies?
That's a great question. So, I mean, really, it's about building a program that gets his attention. So at the time, I built a program called Dev Fridays, and that's where we invited developers from our app ecosystem to come in to our headquarters and pitch or just show off what they're working on top of our platform to our engineers and to our leadership teams. And so after they did that pitch, they got about 15 to 20 minutes of time with Mark Zuckerberg to ask him questions and, just say hi.
Right,
meet and greet
I
session.
see.
And so because of that, I got to meet him a few times in person. So it's I think when I joined, it was about 400 people. And then when I left, it was like 2,500 or something. Like we grew that much in 1 year. It was crazy. So
Facebook 2009. Yeah. Okay. And then what happened after 2009 Facebook?
I touched this. There's a chapter in my book called Betrayal. And I'm not going to jump too much into it other than to say that I had a startup idea in Oklahoma that I was building as I was moving to California. And then as I was starting with this company in Berkeley, that startup went crazy and I got pushed out by someone I called a friend at the time.
Dude.
I went through the whole story in the book. I'll let you readers go through that and read more about it. But essentially what happened was it was my idea, my design of the product, me getting everyone together, but then I didn't actually put together the proper formation documents. And so the CTO who had control of the code decided that I wasn't going to be part of the company or the board anymore. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate. It's what happens in startups sometimes. And I learned a lot from it. But yeah, that startup went on to raise funding from the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, and it was acquired. And I saw zero from it all.
Man, bummer. Yeah, all that
sucks. So
it's
that's what brings me to Facebook. So when I was at Facebook, that's when it was acquired. And so I was still listed as a founder on the TechCrunch article because I negotiated that on the way out. I said, look, I can't do business with somebody I can't trust, because what he was doing is pushing me out, essentially making me an employee. I said, but keep me on as a founder in Wikipedia and everything, just in case. And he was like,
Right.
yeah, I could do that. And I didn't want to deal with all the legal crap of like
Yeah, you
fighting
don't
this
want to
guy.
pursue that. It's too late. I
And
mean, the
so,
documentation isn't there. You'll be paying legal fees for years and just getting pissed
yeah.
off because now you're going even more broke, losing more money.
So as I walked into Facebook one morning, I didn't even see the news. I was walking to Facebook and I just heard, "Congrats, Ryan!" And I'm like, "What? Huh? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
They're like, "You sold Ping," and I'm
No,
like, "Shoot, that sucks."
dang.
So yeah,
Wait,
I
this
mean,
was
it
Ping,
was a
like
bittersweet
Ping?
moment.
What was Ping
Yeah,
exactly?
Ping.fm. It was a service that allowed you to blast all your updates to all your social networks at the same time.
Mm,
And at the time, it was like revolutionary, because we didn't know who the winner was going to be between Pounce and Haiku and Twitter and
Haiku, I
Jaiku
remember.
and all these other different like
Yeah, that's why it sounds familiar.
micro services that are out there,
Okay.
micro social networks.
And then who acquired Ping?
It was acquired by a really famous French entrepreneur. His name is Loic Lemer. He started Le Web. It's a conference in Paris. And
Okay.
he spun out a startup called Seismic, and then Seismic bought Ping FM in exchange for, actually don't know the terms of the deal. I don't want to speak for anybody.
Okay.
But I knew it was good for everybody. I know that.
I'm sure
And
it was.
Seismic was then acquired by Hootsuite. So
Okay.
there's a couple different payouts along the way.
So what so obviously, if you've done a startup, you have the experience and you're not short of ideas, so you must have launched something else as well. What are some other
Yeah,
startups?
I mean, I basically left Facebook and was like, I'm not gonna let this be the end of my startup story.
Mm-hmm.
And so 3 months later, after I left Facebook, I was on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt in New York, and I got fourth place. And I lost to Hotel Tonight and Betterment, but it was a great experience. And from that, I got some funding from Sequoia Scout Fund and some legendary angels and VC.
Can you explain a little bit
We
what
started a
TechCrunch
company
is
called
for the audience?
Bistro. What was that?
Can you explain a little bit what TechCrunch is for the audience?
Oh yeah, sure. So TechCrunch is like the New York Times or the Washington Post of tech news for our industry. It is the place where you want to get your startup or VC venture firm highlighted, because it's for many, it's a bucket list item to be in TechCrunch for your startup. So
And
then they
so
do a conference once a year called TechCrunch Disrupt, where they invite thousands of startups apply to pitch their startup on stage in front of a room of about 3,000 people, and live streamed in front of about 20 to 30,000, depending on the year. And the idea is that you want to keep pitching in this battleground all the way to the top and be the winner and receive, I think it's like $100,000 check from TechCrunch or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the prize is. And then there's been a lot of really great startups that have come out of that, and one on the IPO, Yext, out of New York City as an example. And so, yeah, it was a really great experience, man. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. My co-founder and I, Nolan Mitzel, he's now a senior PM at Google. He had just left Zappos. And so we had this idea of like, man, there's got to be an app store for Facebook. This
yeah.
doesn't exist anywhere. Like to build. And so we went out and built this app store for Facebook called App Bistro. And we ended up, like I said, raising money and got to about 30,000 a month in MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue, and went out to go raise our Series A. And man, there's so much I want to tell, and I don't know how much I can say without getting in trouble. Basically, we met with a VC, a really prestigious VC that was also an investor in a company in India called Inmobi.
Okay.
And they basically said, like, look, we think you should talk to Inmobi. We think there's a good opportunity here for some synergies, for lack of a better word. And they ended up, kind of merging the two companies at the right time, at the right place. And I ended up, merging my company with a unicorn in India. Yeah, it was a wild experience. I ended up doing
Whoa.
14 trips to India in 2 years to integrate my team and my software into this unicorn that is actually about to IPO finally now. Congrats to all the Inmobi folks
Well,
out
heck
there.
yeah. Congrats.
So, it was unicorn. It was the first unicorn ever in India,
So
and it was a
IPO
really cool
meaning like
experience.
initial public offering, and like people can now buy stocks into your company. And so this unicorn in India, which you made 14 trips, must have been really memorable because you remember the exact amount of times you went there. Each one probably had some crazy experience.
First Skype call we had with their team was 9 o'clock at night in San Francisco. Owen and I were at the office still eating Thai, and they went straight into the call. They said, "Look, we want to buy you." And we were like,
Whoa.
we're
You're
actually
finishing
trying to
up your
raise a
morsel,
Series
like,
A right
what?
now.
What?
It was a wild experience. And I called my wife and I was like, "You're never going to believe this." And she's like, "Okay." I'm like, I'm going to India next week. So yeah, we ended up going to India to negotiate the deal. It was actually a really painful experience. I don't know if I touch on the book. There was a couple drafts of the book where I had that chapter in there, and I don't actually remember if it made it or not, but I can talk a little bit about it now. They kind of lowballed us at first, and it was a really painful experience, and we had to push really hard. Finally got a number that made a lot of sense to our investors and to us, and so made the deal happen. And yeah, man, it was, at the same time I had my first son, my first child, Charlie. And so there was no paternity leave with an Indian company, and so I basically was on the road in the first 2 years of him being alive, which really sucked.
Oh man, bummer. Wait, so you sold a company and part of the agreement was you're going to work for the company for 2 years at least, it seems like, as part of
Yep.
the negotiation. Okay, I
Yeah.
understand.
So they do what's typically called an earnout. They'll give you, a lot of times in these deals, they'll give you a third of your payout up front, and then a third of your payout after a year, and then another third of the payout after 2 years to get
That
you
makes
to
sense for
stay
them,
through.
right? Because then you have vested interest in it. You're going to make sure it's successful. They got almost 2 years out of it, service out of it. Okay.
Yeah. And so while I was there, I launched the first ever native ads platform for mobile. And that's what got me recruited to Reddit. So Reddit was just kind of, re-spinning out of Condé Nast. They got acquired by Condé Nast, the magazine publisher, really early on in their journey. But then Condé Nast realized they needed to spin this out and build a company with VCs and bring in some Silicon Valley talent. And so that's drew me to Reddit. Their CEO at the time was a guy named Yishan Wong, who I worked with at Facebook, and so he saw that I had some ads experience working at Inmobi and delivering products there, and so he was like, "We would love to have you join us and help us put some ads on Reddit." Unfortunately for all the users.
Yeah.
But, we did it in a tasteful way, and I always advocated for the users. And there's a great chapter in my book about Reddit where I basically, the CEO said, "Thank you for saving Reddit." There was a
Really?
time, there was a
Jeez.
moment there where we were going down a path I vehemently disagreed with. It was, we were trying to do a deal with Google at the time that I didn't really think was at the user's best interest from a data privacy standpoint. And so I drugged my feet, and I ultimately lost the debate. And while I was implementing this integration, the CEOs switched. So they brought in the founder of Reddit, Steve Huffman, and he came in and basically took control of the company and took us all out to dinner that night, the product team, and said, "Hey, what are you guys working on?" And so I explained the whole thing on what I was working on, how I lost the argument and my stance and everything. He looked me right in the eyes and he said, "Thank you for saving Reddit," because this would have been a shit show.
No way.
It would have been some banner and video ads all over Reddit that were not properly integrated, but just done for short-term revenue. And I felt
I
like
see.
that's not what Reddit needed at that time. What Reddit needed was to focus on their users, not the monetization. And I think ultimately I was proven right. The CEO, the founder, came back, agreed with me, put the project on the kibosh. But because of that, I was very unpopular with a section of the Reddit employees who are
Yeah,
focused
of
on revenue.
course.
And so I made a decision to go ahead and leave and go to Amazon. I was getting recruited by Amazon at the time to join their startup team to go and mentor startup founders and help them build startups. And so kind of took the escape hatch because, I felt like my duty was done there at Reddit. I saved it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had a time
Overcoming
and a
something
moment.
that big, it's time to move on for good or worse. It's time to move on.
Yeah. And so ended up going to AWS and joining their startup team and mentoring YC startups and Techstars startups and flying all over the US to mentor them at in their accelerators and their incubators and things like that. And so that was an amazing role. I started doing a lot of angel investing through that role and had some really great wins from that from that period. And so decided to go into VC. And so I touched on this in the book a little bit as well, but there's a chapter in there where I thought my life was joining a VC firm. And, I was let go about a month before I was set to kind of vest my shares in the firm
From
with
Amazon?
no
Amazon
reason.
let you go a month before?
Sorry, no. I left Amazon to join a VC firm because I was doing
Oh,
a lot
okay,
of
okay. I
angel
missed that.
investing. Sorry, I talk fast. I left Amazon because I was doing so well with my angel investing. I thought my next move was to be a full-time investor
I
for a
see.
venture capital firm. And so I
Gotcha.
was recruited to a venture capital firm to be the second partner of a small firm. I don't want to say too much because I don't know how much I'm supposed to allowed to say. But basically, what
How
happened
does
was
that exactly work? So you're a partner in a VC. That means you're also bringing your own money, right, to the platform, and then you're gonna be a decision maker on which companies and which startups to invest in.
there's a yeah when you're doing a VC firm, there's this thing called management fees. So it's usually about 1% of the fund the management puts in. So if you're a partner, you would be responsible for a part of that 1%. Um, Usually the GP would pay the loan, but if it's two partners, it's best etiquette for it to be split. Anyways, it's not that much money. If it's 25 million, I think it's like 250K or something like that, split
Gotcha.
between two people. So it's not like a big chunk of the fund usually.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, this guy invited me to join his fund. It was a really small $18 million fund. Yeah, I brought in some deals, brought in some investors, thought everything was going great. He brought me in on a year probation. After 1 year, I would be able to get my, join full time and get paid a salary. And, that's because I didn't get paid anything for that full year. And yeah, ended up just letting me go out of the blue.
What?
Just like, yeah, 1 month before I was set to vest everything, I was building this brand for him, the brand of the VC, building a brand for myself in investing, doing not podcasts, but doing, interviews and whatever, doing conferences.
You must have an
And yeah,
inclination of why though. Like what are your like top two reasons?
he didn't give me one. He just said that he thought that I wasn't going to be the long-term partner for the firm. Other than that, just wasn't a good fit. He went off and merged with another person, another VC firm, and he has another partner now, and I'm assuming they're doing great. But yeah, it was just, I think he said,
That's so
and I
dirty.
think I mentioned this in the
Especially like a
book, but
month before. That's the main reason there is money then. I mean, I can't see any other reason without it, If he lets you vest and then he says, okay, we're gonna part ways, give you a 6 month like off board or whatever. This is just, man, you've been through some problems. That's you learned
yeah, it was tough.
definitely some difficult issues, and then your experience and resolve is getting better because of those issues.
Yeah, and I think the part that the meat of the whole book is right around this section in the white. I call it the white hot issue, which is basically I was going through a massive health issue at the time, which is highly embarrassing. But I felt like I really needed to share it because there's a lot of people going through it, and a lot of people don't talk about it, which is around GI issues, right? And
Okay.
I can talk about a little bit here, but I would really encourage your listeners to go read the book.
Sure.
It was a very painful part of my life, and I didn't know what was wrong with my body. And this is why I was at that VC firm. And so I was very emotionally confused and just didn't know what was happening in my life because my body was giving up on me. Job I had that was like my dream job of VC was slipping away. I didn't understand why. And so it was just a very, very low part of my life.
Yeah.
And I really encourage people to read it. It's nothing you would expect, I would assume, but I go through the whole journey and how it affected me and how I got back up from it. And now I'm great. I'm
Well,
100%
good
back
on
in the
you for
saddle.
getting back. That's the way to do it, man. There's that light at the end of the tunnel, and people see you do it, then they're going to feel that much more motivated that they can overcome whatever issue that they're facing in their life. So now that you have overcome it and you've written this memoir as well, what's next for Ryan? Like, what are you up to?
I mean, right now I'm just loving on founders. That's what I feel like my calling is. I work full time at Microsoft in a really amazing role where I get to do basically just help founders in the earliest days of their starting a company. And I get to live vicariously through them, through their wins and through their lows, and be a mentor, be an advisor to them. I think that is honestly, it's more powerful than building a company, because you're getting to just be a part of all these different stories and play small material parts in each one of them.
You're
It's just
pulling on my
really
strings,
fulfilling.
Ryan. That's like my passion right now. I've done cybersecurity and I feel pretty comfortable there. But it's like when you start helping somebody build their own business and you feel their passion and they're putting everything into it, and you can just sort of nudge them or guide them or put some kind of, solution in front of them. Say like, hey, based on my experience, why don't you try X, Y, and Z? And it's like this aha moment. There's like this feeling, I can't really explain it. It's so much better than making a ton of money.
Absolutely, 100%. The money is just it's a good byproduct of what I love to do.
Mhm.
And I think Microsoft recognized that, and they brought me in to do that full time. And I can't ask for a better role and a better job at the moment. It's the team is great, and startups I'm working with are world changing, and so
Wow. So
it's a blessing.
what advice would you give to, all these vibe coders out there that are coming up with these really clever ideas to solve problems, and they want to solve these problems but they don't know how to like get it out there or promote it or even build a startup around it. What would you tell them?
I have been vibe coding a lot of different projects lately. Many are live, many are making money. And I would say half the problem is distribution, right? Like you could build something, but if you don't actually know how to put it in the market and listen to the market, then no one's ever actually going to pay you money, right? Like you're not going to make any life-changing money on your ideas. So one thing I've noticed that a lot of vibe coders do is that they'll have an idea, but they won't actually talk to anybody about it. They'll just start building. And what I've found that is actually way more powerful is to take that idea and go talk to somebody in that space
Mhm.
and validate it first, and then build something that's a problem that person communicated to you, right? So like you have an idea around a certain space, validate that problem, then validate the solution to your problem, and then start building. And then
Okay.
once you've done that, that'll unlock the demand side of your curve. Then you need to unlock the supply side, which is either through social media. So Reddit is a great SEO platform at the moment. Google is indexing a lot of Reddit posts. So if you post something in
Okay.
Reddit, it'll show up in a Google search later on for people around those keywords. So one of the ways from one of my side projects, I still get a lot of organic marketing through is typing in my question around the problem into Google, finding the first Reddit thread that pops up in Google,
Yeah.
going into that Reddit thread and answering questions in there for the next person who answers that. It comes through Google. And so it's kind of creates like a honeypot effect. And so, yeah,
Okay.
different little growth marketing strategies like that are key to unlocking passive income from these side projects.
Gotcha.
I have one right now called JudeAI.com. It's a real estate AI agent for real estate agents. And every day I get a Stripe email that says, hey, you got an extra $60 hit your account, or $80
Nice.
hit your account. And it's just, I haven't pushed code to that website in probably 6 months. And it's just sits there and makes money every day.
That's true passive income right there. And what is this, Jude AI?
Jude AI is it's like ChatGPT, but it has more features around AI and real estate. So it has some pre-built templates for real estate agents to quickly get in and get a form letter done, or whatever kind of letter they need done, or a property manager, or different types of real estate jobs. So we do property management, we do real estate, we do mortgage. And so any of those roles can come in and get like a pre-made document of what they're trying to get
Right.
done, and have AI kind of fill it out for them and print it out and get it done really
Heck
quickly.
yeah. That's awesome. I think that's called a wrapper, right? Basically, you're putting a wrap around ChatGPT, but then the value that you're adding is the prompts are pre-built in, and then the outputs are also pre-built in, meaning, hey, you don't just get a response on your screen, you actually get an exportable document that's ready to go. And for folks that,
And then it's saved in your library, right? So it's like
and then it's
you
saved.
can
Okay,
go and
yeah.
grab it later on and tweak it again if you need to. So it creates like a kind of a work stream for
Exactly.
those
No,
folks.
that's beautiful. And so many people need that. If you're in the tech space, you're thinking, oh yeah, well that's easy. That's just chat GPT. No, like you can't just tell anybody off the street to go do what Ryan just did. You can't just put it in chat GPT and then it pops out. You got to work it, refine it, get feedback from people and continue to update it. But then once it's at that spot, that Ryan is talking about, where for 6 months you don't really need to touch it because it's at that level. Sure enough, there's going to be another Jude AI that shows up that's going to, outperform a little bit. And then you can go in and kind of up your game a little bit.
Yeah, and I think one of the other important things that these rappers are doing, which people don't really talk about enough, is that they route to the right AI model based on the type of question that you're asking. So that saves people a lot of time too. Like and monthly subscriptions, right? So I'm routing to Grok from Elon
Right.
for web searches and web queries, because that model handles web searches better than any other model I've ever seen. I'll use Lambda from Facebook for really cheap evaluation conditional statements that are just like, is this a yes or a no, right? And it's open
Right.
source, so it's essentially free. But then I use ChatGPT for writing because it's the best for writing, right? Like a pure letter. And so my system will, based on the prompt type, then route to the right model for you to get the right response. So
Wow.
yeah, I
That's
don't think
phenomenal.
rappers are going anywhere. I don't think, at first when I did it, everyone was like, ChatGPT is just going to kill you. Well, it's been out since 2022 and it hasn't been killed yet, and it's still making money and it's profitable. So,
Heck yeah.
if they're going to kill it, it's going to be way in the future, and I'm not that worried about it.
Good deal. So okay, so you're a founders right now. That's where people can find you as well. What are some great ways to get a hold of you, and then what should people be inquiring about? Where can they find your memoir first of all?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is ryanmerket.com, just my website. There's a contact form on there. I check it every day. Actually emails me directly. Can't avoid it. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. If you just want to chat and, socialize, I would say X or Threads. I'm on both of those. I don't pick a side. I just try to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's probably the best way. And then LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a lot of followers there. I don't post a lot, but I am there. And I comment a lot. So if you post
Nice.
something and we're connected, you'll probably see me jump in your comments. I'm a comment guy.
I like it.
And then, I'm in Austin, Texas. So if anyone's in Austin and they want to grab some breakfast tacos or coffee, whatever, I'm around. So feel free to
Is
reach
that a
out.
dog I see in the back too?
I do. Yeah, it's Wally. He's been asleep behind me the whole time.
Nice.
There's a dog bed back there. He's just waking up. He's ready to go outside.
So well behaved too. I didn't hear any barking. I didn't say, hey, come give me a treat. Nothing.
No, he's a good dog. He really is. He's a great dog. We love him.
Well,
It's on Audible as well. Check it out.
nice. I like the green font, black
I
background.
actually created a crack me for the book too, which is an exe file. And if you can crack the exe file like I did in high school, there's a coupon code to get a free hardcover book. So I've already had a few hacker type guys go and do that and get free books. So if you are one of those types, I encourage you to go check it out.
That's
and
so
crack it.
clever. That's so clever. It's such a marketing technique right there from like an experienced individual here. Well, thanks a lot, Ryan. Really appreciate your time. This has been phenomenal, eye-opening, mind-blowing story. I'm definitely going to get a copy for sure. And I encourage everybody else to get a copy as well. We'll put all of your information in the description down below, so it's going to be super easy for them to just click through. Any parting shots?
I would just say keep building. Just keep going. If you're in the low, if you're in the trenches, just keep building, keep going, keep taking swings.
Phenomenal advice. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Sonic. Appreciate it.